Hello everyone, you're welcome to another session on Python programming for beginners. In today's video, I'll be talking about functions and how we can work with them. In Python, there are two groups of functions that we have. There is a first group of built-in functions. They came in pre-installed with the Python interpreter. So we've been making use of them all along, like the print, the range, and the input. There are many of them that Python gave us, as programmers to make use of. But there are instances when we need to write our own functions and make use of them in our programs. I'm going to show us how this is done, but just to take a step backward a bit and discuss why do we need functions? What are functions and why do we need them? Functions are bodies of intelligence that programmers write to execute certain tasks, and we don't want to be repeating those lines of code over and over. So we can keep them together, give them a name, and invoke them anytime that we need their intelligence to be used. I'm going to demonstrate this to us and we will see how it works, and all of us will become better users of functions. So we go back into VS Code, create a new file, get a Jupyter notebook up on our screen. I'm waiting for it. What happened? Jupyter notebook. Yes, come up. Something is wrong. Save everything. New file. Okay, so if that's not coming up, I'm going to look for another option. So I can come in here and say, I need func.py. So it gives me a Python code, typical way of writing code within VS Code. Now, if you were asked to write a code to get two numbers, 3 and then number 2 is 4. If you were told to get a third number, it's going to be number 3, such that you can add the first number to the second number. This is what you will have written, and you will have said at the end of the day that first number plus second number is the third number, and then you will format your result as this: number 1 plus number 2 is number 3. These are standard way of writing codes in Python. I can easily just say execute this, and I can see the result here. It says 3 plus 4 is 7. This is not a big deal. We are familiar with this. Now, the big deal is in this area of I taking this business logic away from people's view and just invoking whatever I call it so that people can make use of it. So how will this work? I will leave this as it is for now, and I will go up here and say def add numbers. Now, what I have written here is a function. I have defined a function called add numbers. And this function is going to do whatever I ask it to do. Currently, it's not doing anything. Okay, so I can say add numbers. Now I can go in there and say add numbers n1 and n2 together. But the definition of what it is supposed to do hasn't been given. So I just said pass, just as a way of saying, don't waste my time now. At least let me just create the caricature of the structure, and then I'll come and put the flesh there later. So the flesh is what I want to put now. So I can say the result of this function should be n1 plus n2. And then we will say return the result. That step is key. That line 3 there is key. I'm just saying return result, meaning that whoever calls you and passes these two parameters to you, help them add the two numbers together, get the result, and return it to them so they can make use of it in the other parts of the code where this function is being called. So that's one approach. So how do we call that function? We will comment out this part. It works, but we don't need it that way. So we will come back here and say number 3 is equal to add numbers. So you can see that the name of the function is being displayed. And then once I open the parentheses, it's telling me I am expecting n1, which can be anything, n2, which can be anything, and I'm returning anything to you. So all these three any, we can clean them up later. Even now, we can, let's finish our demo and then we'll clean it up. So it's expecting the first parameter is number 1, comma, second parameter is number 2, comma, and it will do whatever it has been programmed to do, and it will keep the results in num3. So what we are saying here is we are passing parameters. This number 1 and number 2 are parameters that we are passing to these add numbers, because in its definition it was expecting 2 parameters from us, and we have passed the 2 parameters. In programming, you need to pay attention to the sequence of passing the parameters. Otherwise, things may not work as expected. In our case, we are lucky 2 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 2, so we really don't have a problem. If we were doing something else like division here, or exponentiation, we are raising one number to another number, the sequence of passing the parameter will count, and we need to be mindful of that in programming. So if I run this code now, I don't have any problem with it. It will still give me the same result. 3 plus 4 is 7, just like it did before. 3 plus 4 is 7. The only thing I've done here is I have kept the logic of whatever I am doing in my function away, at least literally. I've kept it away from the main part of the code. So I can keep it at the upper part, which is the standard, if you are keeping it within the same code file as the body of your program. And I can also take the function away and put it in another file. I'm going to show us how that is also done. And then I will invoke the name from that other file, and everybody will see the way it works here. So this is a simple function that adds 2 numbers that we supply to it together, and it displays the result to us. Now, what if we do not want anything to be sent into our numbers? For instance, if we run this code again and you pass any, yeah, don't let me call it any, let me say crown. If you run this, I guess it should still work. Oh, it yelled at us because it doesn't know what to do in this case, because it says I can use this plus sign on this. I'm looking for a number, not a string. So this, we're lucky in this case. So let's change this back to 3. Now, the message I actually wanted to pass initially is I could have written this to say I'm expecting an integer to both of them, and I equally expect you to return an integer to my user. So when you get in here, the definition signature also changes. So you will see that my function has been defined as add numbers, is expecting 2 integer numbers, and it is also returning an integer to whoever calls it. In this case, we are calling it in line 11. And this is a lot better than what we had. Now, there are functions that don't return anything, and you can also call them. So it's not in all situations that your functions will return something. So let's give an example of that. I can say greet user, and I'm not even passing any variable. I'm not passing any argument to it. I'll just say print. Maybe we'll put an asterisk here and say this asterisk should be times 45. We make a copy of that. We paste it in here. And then we have another print statement. And then we'll say, hi. We don't know your name, so we can get your name and enhance this later. You're welcome to the use of functions in Python. Okay. Welcome. This is correct. Okay. So this is a function called greetUser. Some people use the convention of use lowercase all through when naming your functions. It depends on which one works for you. I prefer to use something like this, greetUser. And here I can use add numbers. But you see, the moment I change the name for add numbers, this shows me there is a problem. So I need to adjust that name back here. And when I get to the end of the line, I can invoke that my new function, greetUser, by writing something like this, greetUser. And when I run this code, it will do what it was programmed to do. Hi, you're welcome to the use of functions in Python. Okay, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 added to this will be 53. And then I can actually put an extra space there so that it stands out on its own. So we can execute the code again, and we can see the report or the output. Hi, you are welcome to the use of functions in Python. That is a way to execute a function that you are not passing any parameter to, and it's not returning any results to you. It's only doing what it has been programmed to do. And you can use this to create headers or some footer for your output, as the case may be. Now, I mentioned earlier in the demo that it's possible for you to have functions that sit in another file and you can invoke them from that extra file. Let's see a demo of how that can be done. I can take this add numbers away from here. In the interim, I leave it on the screen. I'll produce a new file. I'll call it function demo.py. Okay. And then I'll dump our code there. I'll save it and I'll close it. So this is it. It's in the same directory as the func.py that we were working with. So what I would then do is to say import function demo. We've been importing things from the earliest part of the training. This is the first time we are importing something that we wrote on our own. So we have the function sitting inside this file. This is add numbers. You can have as many functions as you may need, so you can keep your business logic within that space. And then I am invoking the name here to say import function demo. I can call it as fx. That's the initial that I have given it. What that means is that wherever I need to use add numbers, if I say fx dot, you can see that my add number shows up here, and it will run exactly as it was supposed to run if I had kept the function within the same file. So when I run my Python, everything works. 3 plus 4 is still 7. This fx.add numbers is no longer within this file, but a reference to it is being made through this line 1, where I am importing that intelligence that sits in another file. So this is the way in which some programmers can keep the sanity of their business logic away from most users, and you just give them the name. Maybe I have given you too much info by saying add numbers, so you have an idea that I'm adding numbers, and then when you look at the structure you see that I'm adding just two numbers. What if I give it a name that is cryptic? For instance, if we go back into that function, we can come in here and say define get depreciation, and then for now we'll say pass. I don't know what the definition is going to be. So to get the depreciation of any asset, typically you want to get the cost of the asset, and then you want to know the lifetime in years of the asset, so that would be an integer, and then the definition will be results will be cost, typically divided by lifetime in years multiplied by 12. Okay, so if you do this, it will give you the monthly depreciation value of that asset, and you can say return is to say send the result back to whoever is calling it, and then this is going to be in here. So this is a function that we have written and we've kept it within function demo. So if we come back to any file within the same directory, it's going to be possible for us to say cost of an asset is say 150,000 naira, and this is an asset that has a lifetime of 4 years for sake of illustration. And then it means the depreciation figure will be fx dot, you can see it says get depreciation. What is it expecting? Float is going to be the cost first. So I cannot come in here and say live cost. If I do this, I'm going to get a number, but it will be an incorrect number because this is not the sequence in which this function is expecting the parameters. So I need to pass the parameters in the right sequence. So when you open the parentheses, you saw that it indicated the sequence for you: cost first, then lifetime in years after. So I can put cost, and then I can put lifetime, just this, and then the depreciation figure will be displayed for us on the screen. So we can say dep, and you can format the dep the way you want. Everybody will see the value. So it says the depreciation monthly is going to be 3,125, and that's this figure divided by 4 times 12. Yeah. Now, one thing you also need to pay attention to here is that the variable name that I used in the body of the code may not necessarily be the same name used in the function. So if we go back to our function quickly, you see that I used cost. I could have changed this to cost price and then lifetime in years. Okay, and here the formula will change to cost price based on the variable update, and we'll be fine with that. So on this side, it is cost price and lifetime in years. When we get to where the function is being invoked, which is here, it's just cost and life. It can be anything here. The most important thing is you should understand the mapping, that this cost maps to cost price and life maps to lifetime in years. Don't swap them, otherwise you won't get the right result. This is a very simple way in which you can write your own functions within your Python environment, and it will work very well for you. The message you should get here will be, to define a function or to create a function, you always will start with def keyword, put the name of the function and the parentheses opens and closes, and then you put the definition of what the function should do within this block here. In this case, I have a greet user function that is not returning anything, and it's not processing any argument at all. But you may have situations where your functions will get parameters. It will do some things without sending anything back. It's not returning any result. And you may equally have situations where it gets parameters passed to it. It does its own internal calculations and it returns results back to whoever is invoking it. Just like we have in this situation where we are calculating the monthly depreciation, and in this situation where we are calculating the addition of two numbers together to get a third one. You can build on this and see how well this is going to help you. I hope you will find it very intuitive. It's a very handy way of writing clean code. One other message you need to get is if you are not keeping your function definitions away like this, and you want to write them within the same file as the body of code, then they must be written well before you invoke them. Here I have add numbers. If add numbers had been on this page, it has to be, the function has to be before you use it. I have greet user here in line 4 to line 8, and that's how I can use it on line 19 because the function has been defined before. If I take it away from that point and I come down here to put it here, there will be a problem because what Python would tell me is that it doesn't know what greet user is. It's going to assume that I'm trying to invoke a function that does not exist, and that's what it is telling me here. Error, greet user is not defined. I don't know what greet user is, and it's because it doesn't know genuinely. So for me to be able to use greet user as a function, I must have defined it first, and then I can invoke it in the rest of my code. This is my message for you on functions. I hope you find it very useful, and I hope you will create situations in your own day-to-day codes where you need to make use of functions. It makes your codes neater and look more professional. Thanks a lot for being a part of this recording. I see you in the next set of codes, which is going to be challenge being given to you to test everything you've learned so far. Bye for now.